What up, man? It's your boy LP, aka LPZ, and I just want to share a quick message with you about not putting limits on yourself. Don't put limits on yourself, and definitely don't put limits on God. A lot of times, I know myself, I've been a victim to it, and I'm making the necessary adjustments now. But a lot of times we put limits on ourselves and we put limits on God, and we cannot do this. We can't do this because there are things that we are supposed to do in this earth, things that we're supposed to accomplish in this earth. If we put limits on ourselves and if we put limits on God, we are not going to accomplish these things. Miles Monroe said that the wealthiest place on the earth is the cemetery. You know why? Because in the cemetery, there's books that were never written. There's songs that were never sung. There's businesses that were never started. All these things, people take these things and they go to the cemetery with it. And I don't want you to take your wealth. I don't want you to take your greatness to the cemetery. Because if you take it to the cemetery, you're going to add to the wealth and the greatness of the cemetery. With that being said, there was a woman that came to the prophet Elijah over in 2 Kings chapter 4. And she was like, hey, Elijah was like, what can I do for you? He said, well, my husband is dead and he was a man of God. You knew that he was, a good guy. But because he's dead, the creditors are coming, because we owe some debt. My husband was in debt and they're coming to take my children as slaves, And so Elijah asked her a very strange question. He asked her, well, what do you have in your house? What do you have? What do you have to offer? What do you have? And she said, I don't have anything except for this jar of oil. And so what Elijah told her, he said, well, this is what you do. Go to your neighbors and borrow vessels. And he said, borrow not a few. In other words, borrow a whole bunch of vessels. And so with her going to get the vessels, he said, now go inside, close the door. All right, when you go in and close the door, start pouring the oil into the vessels. So anyway, with that being said, she went, borrowed the vessels, came in, sat down, closed the door or whatever. And she told her, her sons, give me a vessel. So she began to pour. Got another vessel, began to pour. That oil just kept pouring. It kept pouring. It kept pouring. It kept pouring. And whenever they ran out of vessels, the Bible says that the oil stayed, or the oil stopped flowing. The reason why the oil stopped flowing was because she didn't have any more vessels. It's not that the supernatural didn't have any more oil, it's that she didn't have enough vessels. What she did was she put limits on the promise. And so if she would have continued to get more vessels and more vessels, the oil could have kept flowing. Now, true indeed, she took the oil, she sold it and paid off her debt. But imagine if she would have continued on and she'd have had more vessels, she could have started an oil business. She could have went into business selling oil. You get what I'm saying? But she put limits on God. She put limits on the promise, and she just got enough vessels just to take care of what she had. With that being said, I would encourage you, do not put limits on God. Do not put limits on yourself. Just like Elijah asked that woman, what do you have in your house? What do you have? My question to you is, what do you have? And you say, well, all I have is this little talent. All I have is this little gift. If you take that little talent, if you take that little gift and you listen to specific instructions from God, God will show you how you can take that gift, how you could take that talent, how you could take that little small thing that you think is so insignificant, and he will give you creative ideas. He will give you all types of information and input and wisdom to where you can take that little bit that you have and it can be multiplied, and it can be multiplied supernaturally. Because see, you can't look at your own personal abilities. You can't look at the natural. You can't look at the natural. All right. Because in the natural, you know what I'm saying, it ain't gonna happen because it's just looking bad, in some areas. But from a supernatural perspective. If you take that little bit that you have and you get specific instructions from God, God will give you wisdom and insight on how you could take that little bit which you think is insignificant. You could take that little bit and multiply it and take it to a whole nother level so that you can take care of everything that you need and some. Everybody say and some. See, that's the type of God we serve. We serve a God of and some. Everybody say and some. So with that being said, don't put limits on God and don't put limits on yourself. Holla at your boy, man. It's your boy LP, aka LPZ. Gia.